Welcome everyone who's joining us. We're about to start the presentation. Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a discussion of puppy lameness. And no, it is not okay. Our presenter today is Dr. Debbie Gross Torraca. Dr. Torraca believes every dog deserves to live the best quality of life for the longest time possible, pain-free, happy, and strong. Her company, Wizard of Paws Physical Rehabilitation for Animals, focuses on that moment. The animal walks in the door whether they are 8 weeks of age or 18 years of age. Dr. Torraca began her career in human physical therapy and specialized in orthopedics and pain management in both ortho and sports medicine atmospheres. Her knowledge and ability to translate her knowledge from the human side of the animals has been very, very useful, and she is enjoying her work with animals for over 22 years and is considered a pioneer in the field of canine physical rehab. She is one of the founders of the University of Tennessee's certificate program in canine rehab. Through the university and throughout the world, Dr. Torraca has been a well sought out speaker on a variety of subjects. She speaks all over the world to veterinary professionals, allied healthcare professionals, dog enthusiasts, and owners. She is also the founder and heads the Certified Canine Manual Therapy Program through the University of Tennessee. She teaches regularly at the Fenzi Dog Sports Academy, as well as many other organizations. She sees a variety of clients in her busy clinic, Wizard of Paws Rehabilitation and Wellness Foundation centered, focused on rehab and wellness. We welcome Dr. Torraca.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. This is definitely puppies. I mean, everyone loves puppies. I have a 6.5-month-old puppy right now. I kind of okey-doked my husband into a puppy in March when we all went into COVID lockdown. I figured what better time to get a puppy than when we're home. So it's interesting, I haven't had a puppy in almost 9 years. So watching puppies and, and living with one brings a whole new awareness, from my work at the office. So today I'm going to talk about lameness in general, but especially puppy lameness, because lameness is never okay, especially in a puppy. And puppies are so cute. They, we look at them and sometimes they do crazy things and we laugh at it. But watching a puppy do a flip over or a tumble salt is okay once, but when they repetitively do it, we can be setting them up for injuries. So they're not little dogs. They're developing, and there are a lot of things to consider. And I actually start to work with puppies as early as 3 weeks of age, doing some core strengthening and body development. And then we may see puppies as early as 8 weeks. The German Shepherd, the beautiful girl in this photo, is 5 months, and she already had hip surgery. And her owner was very fortunate, listened, watched the dog. He's one of our canine handlers. She's not a police dog, but he knew right away. So she had severe hip dysplasia, had surgery, and she is well on her way. And the Great Dane sleeping on the big purple disc is only 7 weeks old. And so doing some core work there. So, and this is so important. As I mentioned, puppies are not little dogs. There are a lot of things to factor in. And, certainly we have to look at nutrition. I recently had 2 litter mates come in, 2 puppies that were diagnosed with rickets, which is a vitamin deficiency. And it's something I haven't seen in a while. Sometimes we'll see them coming out of shelters, just malnutrition and lack of vitamin D, and both dogs were able to bounce back pretty quickly. But we also have to think, and I'll talk about more specific exercise restrictions. So the puppies shouldn't be running constantly. We would not do that with a toddler. They may go and then they take naps, and puppies should take lots of naps. And then if you look at this, and I know this is pretty detailed, but we have to factor in their growth plates. So the growth plates are little kind of machines at the end of the bone, and while they're still open, they're keeping the bone growing. So if you just look at, some of the deviations here, if we look at femoral head, like back by the dog's tail, so the femoral head is where the hip is. So in some dogs, the growth plate can close at 4.5 months, and other dogs, it doesn't close to 15 months. So very important to think about. So you may have a 15-month-old German Shepherd or Great Dane or Berner or Labradoodle, and their growth plates are not closed until they're over a year old. The same thing if you look at the dog's front, elbows are often a cause of problems. And those growth plates may also not close until they're about 15 months, sometimes even more in larger dogs. So I know that slide is a lot to digest, but just keep in mind these growth plates stay open for a prolonged period of time. And when I'm talking about the growth plates, you can look at the puppy versus the adult. And in the puppy, that open growth plate, so again, I like to think of that area as a little bit of a machine, and it's working really hard to make sure that bone grows the proper length. If it's damaged, and it could be damaged from too much jumping, I see it a lot in dogs that are in a kennel situation or a shelter, and they're jumping up and down in their kennel or their run, and they're putting a lot of stress, especially on their elbows. So once that growth plate is damaged, the bone doesn't grow properly. We'll also see it with too much running and playing. So I see this quite often. I live in New England, and a lot of people get puppies for Christmas, and by springtime, they're ready to run with them. And the puppies are only 6 months old, and they're running and running and running and having lots of issues. So we don't want to do any of that. It can cause lameness and cause other issues. And this is my pup laying on my bed here. He's a Clumber Spaniel. So my rule of thumb is 5 minutes of exercise per month of life. So if you have a 4-month-old dog, you can do 20 minutes of exercise spread out throughout the day. And that is walking. That may be a light jog, although I like to hold on running and jogging until those growth plates are closed. I know my Clumber Spaniel is going to top out about 75 pounds. We'll go on a walk maybe for 15, 20 minutes now, but nothing more than that. If he chooses to run around and play, that's fine, but I am not attaching him to a leash or a bike and running with him. So we don't want to do extreme jumping, running, and I always say let a tired puppy rest. Don't keep waking up. The same thing, like don't wake up a sleeping baby. When a puppy has had enough, most of the time they will just take their break and rest. So I like this 5 minutes of exercise per month. And this may need to be adjusted a little bit. We have a Great Danes in right now, and a 4-month-old Great Dane, and she has no idea where her body awareness, her back legs are, no body awareness, anything like that. So until the next week, until she kind of grows into her body, we're just taking it easy. She's just here for some proprioception and body awareness work. So in the house, we want to avoid the dog jumping off of furniture. So I know it's always, puppies get up, and I'm dealing with this with my husband right now, and the puppy, he thought it would be cute to put steps leading up to our bed. And I said, well, that's great, but I don't want him jumping off the bed. So we don't want them continuously jumping off the furniture. We want to avoid having them run downstairs or jumping off of them until they're at least 4 to 6 months old. And of course, this is going to depend upon the size of your dog. A Papillon or smaller terrier will have their growth plates are going to close sooner. So you may be looking at them going downstairs about 4 months. A larger dog is going to take a little bit longer. And of course, in reality, you know, I have stairs in my house. All my dogs sleep upstairs. I just don't encourage them to go up and down constantly. So you also have to live with the dog. And we also want to avoid excessive time on slippery floors. So, you know, on tile floors, wood floors, that sort of thing. We know that puppies that grow up on slippery surfaces under the age of 8 years of age have a higher tendency or a higher propensity for a hip and elbow dysplasia. So as they're growing, we don't want them on slippery floors. And again, this is a balancing act. If you only have hardwood floors, if you're in a kennel situation, we just want to limit the time. Phthalate-free yoga mats or runners work fantastically to put down. So this is just another kind of thing about the growth plates in a large breed dog. And again, looking at the hips and the elbows really being the big thing. So the red and the green are where the hip is. And then in the front, we see the purple and the green of the elbow. So again, just to give you another sort of visualization about these growth plates and how important they are. And mental exercise with puppies, because so often, again, I know I'm living it. So you want to tire puppies out. And I will see this a lot we work with the Connecticut Humane Society, and we see a lot of young dogs come in that have injuries, and you know, they're asking, we want to do ball playing, we're doing all of this to try to tire them out. And all that physical activity may not be good for them. So mental exercise, this is something called a snuffle mat. There's a lot of other toys out there that you can do for mental stimulation. And that mental stimulation will do a lot to tire puppies out. So puppies should not limp. As I had said, anytime a dog is limping or they're not putting all their weight onto their hind end, that is considered lameness. And this, again, is my pup here, and I watch him like a hawk because Clumber Spaniels are prone to hip and elbow issues. If you see them off for a second, okay, you know, that is fine. But if you see that continue, so if you see them not put weight on their limb consistently, and I usually say more than 3 times, or they're holding it up for more than 10 seconds, it's something that you should pay attention to. Think about when you're limping or you're not putting all your weight on one of your legs, it could be something as severe as a broken hip. It could be a hangnail. It could be a blister on your foot, but they're all causing pain. So anytime a puppy is limping or lame, there's pain. And that pain is going to shut off the muscles, and we're going to get this continuous vicious cycle where there's pain and inflammation, and there's going to be lameness. And there are many reasons a pup will limp. It could be things related to growth. There are conditions called panosteitis and hypertrophic osteodystrophy. And both of those are the hypertrophic osteodystrophy is very severe. That needs vet attention. Panosteitis, you'll see this in medium and large and extra large breeds, such as your Berners or your German Shepherd mixes, your Rotties, that sort of thing. And on radiograph or x-ray, you'll see inflammation of the bone. So there are many reasons a dog will limp, and that you can determine, but as soon as you start to see that, you need to be concerned and say, let me take a look here, what is going on? Certainly stop all the activities. So this dog is limping. She's actually 14 months old. She's a whippet. So there's no other way to look at this. Limping equals pain. And we could see she's taking her weight off her right back leg and putting it more on the left side. And we never want to have the dog continue through limping or lameness. So again, if that dog is limping, it's painful. And a lot of people will say, oh, but the dog is, happy to run around. And I've seen puppies with broken legs still run around. Their drive is much different. They factor in pain differently. Dogs don't usually whine. Some of them do, but not every painful dog is going to whine and lay down. So it depends a lot on their breed and a lot of what they've been through. I've seen a lot of our Humane Society dogs have a high threshold of pain because they've been in situations where they've had to just suck it up and live through it. So causes of lameness, here's another dog we can see not placing all her weight onto the left hind limb. She's a 10-month-old Humane Society dog, and she actually has hip dysplasia. So when we look at the causes of lameness, and there could be lots of things, and not to scare anyone at all, you need to find out what the lameness is for. I've definitely seen dogs just limp because they're fatigued and they've overdone it. And that's another reason why if your dog is limping, you need to stop the activity. So we could definitely have growth plate concerns. Hip and elbow dysplasia can be diagnosed as early as 4 to 6 months of age. Certainly, as I mentioned, nutrition. So nutritional deficits will cause some lameness. Again, a lot of puppies that are out of rescue or rescued from bad situations don't have the best, best nutrition there. And then structural issues. So obesity, and this is something I often say with, or for some reason, Labradors and come in, Labrador puppies, and the owners always think a chubby puppy is considered cuter. This is not true. I mean, yes, they're cute, but a fatter dog or a chubby puppy, there's going to be a lot of increased weight on their joints, and this can cause a lot of extra stress on their growing bodies. We see things like their ankle or their hock start to drop, so does their wrist. So we don't want puppies to be overweight. And I know, especially new puppy owners, it's sometimes difficult to judge how much is proper, and you don't know how big they're growing. So important to keep track of their weight and make sure they're not getting too fat. We should always feel their ribs. So proper nutrition, definitely a key. And I suggest working with your veterinarian or a veterinary nutritionist to design a proper diet if you're lost. This beautiful little girl graduated. She was one of the puppies that had rickets. And so she had some bone abnormalities as well as significant weakness. Fortunately, it took about 2 to 3 weeks to turn her around, and she graduated. She has our little bandana on, and she's doing great. So, and this dog and her littermate was actually raised with a homemade diet. It just did not have the proper amount of nutrition for a puppy. So always very important to look at that. Structural issues. This was a dog, a Humane Society dog that was rescued, spent too much time in a tiny crate. So this is what, when we got the dog, in this picture, she's only 16 months of age and she looks a lot older. She's had a tough life, but she's limping because of all of these issues, and definitely frightened, lots of things going on. And she wound up, fortunately, being adopted by a wonderful family and has a great life. So we were able to get her out of that. So what can you look for when you're looking for lameness? Because sometimes it's not always easy to see, especially if you're new to this. So if we want to look at your dog, puppies, again, sleep a lot, but are they excessively sleeping? So if they are, they may be painful. They may not want to engage because they're really not feeling well. So know your pup. If they've had an excessively hard day of, play or something, I always let owners know the puppy's allowed to be tired 4 to 6 hours after the activity, but not more than that. So if you notice that took the puppy and they were playing with other puppies and the puppy slept for the next 24 to 36 hours, that's too much. If the dog is having difficulty waking up, that's something that should be considered an emergency. If they're not budging, they're not wanting to eat, they're that tired, there may be something else going on. So important to take a look at that. There's sitting postures. So we have a lameness, but also we can see how this pup is sitting, and this is not normal. This dog does have hip issues, and it's something that we were able to work the dog out of. But do you notice that your pup is not sitting normally? So this is kind of like a W sit in kids, and it means that there's excessive mobility in the hips and probably the knees. So that's something to pay attention to. And here again, just some more sitting postures. The Labrador just sitting like this. This is a 10-month-old. The dog in the middle is just lazy sitting. And sometimes puppies lazy sit as they're developing. Other times it's a sign of an issue. And a lot of times we'll work on it. We want to make sure they're okay. But as this Border Collie is doing, we'll have them sit on an unstable object. And this helps them engage their hip muscles and their core a little bit more. And so if you have puppies, if you're working in a shelter situation, a kennel situation, just again looking at making sure that they're on a good surface to take some time with. This, we'll watch this hind limb lameness. Dogs normally put 60 to 70% of their weight on their front legs and 30 to 40% of their weight on their back legs. This is a 10-month-old Newfoundland, and we can watch. And as they're walking, can you see that she's hitching on the left side? So she's not putting all of her weight on the left hip. And I'll play it again for you because I know there's a lot of hair there. But we watch and we can see she's picking that up and kind of hitching that. So she is lame, and her cause of lameness was part growth. The owner was letting her do a lot of roughhousing, playing with the other Newfoundlands at home. Fortunately, this was something that we were able to treat, get better, and she's doing great. So the dog may not completely pick up their leg. They may have more of a subtle hitch. Something I always like to do if I suspect that a dog is lame and I'm not able to see it one-on-one, or the owners are not sure, I'll ask the owners to put nail polish on the bottom of their nails and the top of their nails and do like a nice bright color like red or pink. Leave it on there for 24 to 48 hours and then compare side to side. If one side still has the nail polish on the bottom, the dog is probably not putting all the weight down. And it's a little bit of a trick you can do to take a look at that. Oops. Forelimb lameness or front leg lameness usually results in what's called a head bob. So the dog will be moving, and when they put their front leg down, their head comes up. And again, the dog is putting more weight onto their front legs, so they'll jerk their head up to get the weight off of it. And there's a lot of reasons for forelimb lameness. We may see things like elbow dysplasia, which again, we can see as early as 4 to 6 months of age. Soft tissue issues where the dog has been playing and running and they kind of just, slip. OCD lesions or osteochondritis dissecans, which is a lesion on the bone. I mentioned growth-related illness like panosteitis, or it could be something as simple as damage to the nail or the paw. So often, I always have owners first check the nails in the paw to make sure that there's not a cut or a tear in their web spaces, or that they didn't tear their nails, because that can be quite painful. If you've ever stubbed your toe or anything like that, it causes a good amount of pain. Then bunny hopping. So my pictures of bunnies here. And bunny hopping, if we watch, is very often a cause of issues. It may also be a sign of development as the dog is moving. Very often as puppies are going through their awkward stage, like I mentioned, the Great Dane puppy, my Clumber Spaniel went through 2 weeks of bunny hopping. And what the dog does is as they move, they kick their legs back like a bunny. And if we see this consistently, it's definitely something to take a look at. If it's associated with a limp or pain, or the dog's sitting funny, we should definitely have it checked out by a veterinarian. And again, some puppies go through this and in the transitional stage, and they may just bunny hop. But if it continues more than 2 weeks, and again, it's associated with a limp or pain, you should really have it checked out. Muscle loss is another thing to look at. So here, this dog, we can see on the left side is not putting all of its weight onto the left side, and we can see that the left side is smaller. So is there a visual difference? And then in the other photo, we can see the dog is not putting its leg all the way down. So, that's a clear cut of lameness or limping, and that is associated with pain. So if you see this, understand that it is not okay, and the dog is most likely suffering with pain. If the dog has difficulty standing, here's another video we can go through a few times. So you can see as the dog stands, it doesn't extend the hips all the way back, and it gingerly sits. So standing and not extending all the way, and again, I'll play that again, just so you could see. So not too comfortable there. We have a low tail wag going, so we see that going on there. So again, something to look for. And I laugh about this, how many of us, especially during the COVID crisis, overwalking our dogs because we're bored, we think they need more exercise and we need more exercise. So it's just kind of a reminder that we don't want to overdo it with our dogs. And certainly I don't even want to think how that dog is going to get down from there. That was like the first thing I thought of, not the laughing about the 20 walks a day. Puppy exercise, things that are safe, working on unstable surfaces, always great, to do in moderation to help. If your puppy is limping, so we don't want to pick them up, although we often want to. This is a puppy that is very dear to my heart that we take care of. We stop the activity right away. So if you're at a dog park, if the dog is outside playing, stop the activity and have the dog rest. So, definitely make note of it. Keep track of the limping. I always encourage puppy owners to keep a journal anyway, just of their normal activities. And if you do see limping, it's important to write down, when does a limping occur? Is it after lying down? So when they stand up, do they limp for a little bit and then walk it off? And that may be just a sign of some inflammation and the dog is able to walk it off. Is it all of the time? Is it in the evening when they're tired? Or is it in the morning when they've had less activity? So all of these things, and when you're talking with your veterinarian, these are all questions that will be important to let him or her know. So with resting, we'll want to rest the dog if they're limping. I don't always advocate strict crate rest. Mentally and physically, the dog may go a little bit crazy and you may go crazy. We want to adjust the activity. So combining mental and physical activity, As I mentioned, snuffle mats, things like peanut butter mats. There's so many great things that are out there that you could work with. So just to reiterate, this is my dentist, very cute puppy. Puppy lameness is never okay, and it's something that we should always keep track of, and again, stop the activity there. And as we mentioned, the goal is always for the dog to live the best quality of life for the longest time possible, and this starts when the dogs are puppies. So any questions, you can always reach me through a CC. You can always email me as well. So thank you.